Hi, everybody. Can we hear me okay? Awesome. All right, well, my name is Chelsea, and I'm so very happy to welcome you to the Aquarium of the Pacific's 3rd annual Juneteenth event. We're very grateful that you're here today, whether it's in person or on our live stream. We've got some great people here today. They're going to share their thoughts and experiences with us about this holiday. We're going to learn a lot today, and I know I'm ready to learn a lot today, too. And so without further ado, please put your hands together for Erisa Nicole playing Lift Every Voice and Sing.
Hi, everyone. Hi. Oh, I'm so happy to see all your smiling faces. So my name is Erisa Nicole, and does anyone know what this is that I'm holding? Yes, you guys got it. Awesome. But it's more, and more specifically, it's actually an alto saxophone. So I'm kind of like the middle child in the family. Okay? You guys got it? So this song I'm going to play, it's called Lift Every Voice and Sing. It's the Black National Anthem, okay? I hope you enjoy it.
Thank you so much, Erisa. That was beautiful. And now it is my pleasure to introduce to you the Aquarium's very own Callum Watson, our youth and family volunteer coordinator and longtime friend of the Aquarium, Baba the Storyteller. Baba, I think your fan club is here.
It's family. It's family.
So I think a lot of people here maybe don't know entirely what Juneteenth is about, so I figure I'd get us started with our main question. What is Juneteenth, and a little bit about what is its history, if you don't mind?
Well, for me, Juneteenth is more of a personal thing because I was born in Texas, so I grew up with Juneteenth. But for me, the Juneteenth that we're celebrating now is not the Juneteenth that I grew up with. The history of Juneteenth is something I've always had a relationship to and issues with. I'm going to be totally honest with you. Okay, when I was growing up, when I was very young, when I was in elementary, I knew very little about Juneteenth, right? We celebrated it, but I didn't know very much about it. The only thing I knew about Juneteenth was that I got to eat. That was the main thing I knew about Juneteenth, was that every year we would travel from my little small town in Central Texas to Houston, which is where the biggest celebrations of Juneteenth were. There was a pastor in the 1860s named Pastor Yates who purchased these acres of land. Today they call it Freedom Park. And Freedom Park is where we would go to celebrate Juneteenth. So I grew up celebrating that, but most of the time it was a religious celebration. It was done by the churches. It wasn't as secular as it is today. So for me, I mean, we can continue discussing, but the significance of Juneteenth for me is a little different than the popular narrative.
Yeah.
You know, I would agree with that as well. So for me, it was always a religious thing. I grew up in the Adventist church, and so Juneteenth was our time to celebrate, get together, have a good time, but just kind of talk about the history of what happened to our people, you know. That was a lot of history, a lot of suffering, a lot of pain. So when I think of Juneteenth, yes, I want to celebrate. At the same time, it's a remembrance for me. You know, I have to think back about what happened, and the depth of the pain that happened to our people is just so deep. So it's hard for me personally to kind of celebrate because all of that comes flooding right back the moment I start to celebrate, and I just have these kind of really deep mixed emotions. But for all of my youth and children out there in the audience, for those, I mean, the most basic kind of understanding of what Juneteenth is, it's just the time where the slaves were kind of officially freed from enslavement, and so they were able to be free. Whether that actually happened or not, but you know, that was kind of what we are celebrating. So there's a lot of food, a lot of remembrance, a lot of time to just be together, and that's kind of what Juneteenth is.
Yeah. And my job as a historian has always been to put it in some kind of context. So one of the things I always do, because the popular narrative is that General Granger, I won't go into details, came down and told all of the enslaved people, General Order 3, you're free. And all the narrative at the time was that none of these black folks knew they were free. So apparently when General Granger offered that, everyone was like, we're free now? We didn't know. No, that's part of the popular narrative, and it's what I want to correct. And I'll give just a slice of what I do to correct that. If people really want to understand Juneteenth, they should look up the Rio Grande expedition. There were battalions of black soldiers, they called them the United States Colored Troop, who invaded South Texas in 1863. They invaded South Texas, and they pushed through Texas to up in the cotton trade. And when they were pushing through Texas, they were taking over land. They were these black troops were sending the white slave owners fleeing, because Texas was what was holding the Confederacy together, the cotton trade, because it was coming down through Texas. So these black troops were sent there to disrupt it, and disrupt it they did. They really did. And we don't have a knowledge or a history that is popular to acknowledge what these troops were doing. And they went as far up into Galveston. They went to Austin. Okay, I'm a historian, so I get overly excited. I'm not going to take the narrative too far. But one point that I remember was in 1865, June of 1865, there was a governor. Texas had this governor named Governor Mora. Governor Mora had become so frightened by these colored troops coming in that he fled to Mexico. He left the country. He gave up on Texas. But it was the newspapers at the time talked about this. So we have written records of this. I think we need to place it in a context where black folks have agency in establishing our own freedom. Sorry, I got verbose, I got open-winded. Sorry about that.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense with, especially, giving us a bit of a recap. It makes sense that it's not always a joyous celebration for some people, and it's sometimes more of a day of remembrance and kind of memorial. And so you were saying you grew up in Texas, and so you grew up with the holiday. Callum, did you grow up with the holiday as well? I know you were saying it means something a little different to you.
It does. So for me personally, I didn't really grow up celebrating it too much, right? Because of that remembrance for me and my family. We just kind of sat back. Also, my mom is Caribbean, so we kind of have a different kind of history there as well. And my dad is from here, from the US. So I have two kind of worlds merging together in my household. But I still personally, I celebrated it, and there was times where our church got together surrounding these things, and we had festivals, and it was always a good time. So, but I think, hearing what you just said, it reminds me of telling maybe everyone a little bit of a story of kind of what things might have looked like if you found out the news that you were free, right? How many of you here have parents or family or really close friends? Can you show me your hands? Oh, look, almost everybody's hand. Wow, everyone's hand, right? You all had really close friends. So imagine one of your close friends were sold or taken away from you, and you never saw them ever again. And you just found out the word that you're free, right? So what are you going to do? You're going to sit down and wait for that friend to come back, from your family member to come back. Who knows where they are, but I hope that I can see them again. That's my child, that's my sister, I want to see you again. But what happens was vagrancy laws. Now I'm waiting. By the way, vagrancy law, you cannot sit here and wait, or else we are taking you to jail. And so now you're waiting for your family member, and you're back in jail. Or maybe, there's not much jobs around, right? Because who's going to hire you? White people? No, they're not going to hire you. So you're waiting around. You might be hungry. You take a piece of bread. You're in jail for about 10 years, right? So you're looking at these harsh prison sentencings. And what's so interesting about Juneteenth is, yes, we're celebrating, but systems really ended up staying the same, right? Now you're back under some kind of control, back into the fold because you were waiting around, or they're sharecropping. You had to go back onto the plantation and work for your, So one thing to really keep in mind about Juneteenth is that, yes, you celebrate those freedoms, but at the same time, as systems are changing, there are people who are working overtime to make sure that those systems stay the same, practically. So I think a big challenge for us is to really think about when we want change to happen, there will be those people who are also making the change on the other end. And we have to be vigilant in making sure that we are interrupting those systems and making sure that we are making actual change, right? We're not going right back into the prison systems or right back into the slavery, essentially. So it's just something to think about, right? Something to think about.
Makes sense. We can't get rid of a system and then expect the vacuum to work for everybody. We have to be active in helping and fixing.
Yes.
Now, you guys have probably been looking at these pictures that have been going on the screen behind us, and Baba actually brought those. Do you want to tell us a little bit about them?
Yeah, the images that you're going to see up here are going to change. And one of the things I do as an oral historian is I try to bring historical context to what it is that we're looking at. So when you're looking at these images of formerly enslaved people, a lot of times we look at these images and we don't put them in the context of them having agency for themselves. So when we're looking at formerly enslaved people such as this, what you're actually looking at, what you're actually seeing are people who fought for their own freedom. What you're looking at is children, women, men who spied for the Union. What you're looking at, and as it's going to change, you're going to see some people who are in work clothes. You're going to see people who are stewards, who are working behind the scenes, who are building. And one of the fallacies also that happens a lot is many of these people, men, women, and children, took up arms. They took up arms. We never talk about that fact, that many of these people before Lincoln authorized the United States colored troops had taken up arms. So these aren't people who are posing for an image and they just happen to be in front of the camera. These are people who pose for images because they were doing work. Yeah. They were doing work. Yeah. So when you see children, like in these images, don't think of children who go out and they just play and that's all they're interested in. Think of children in the context of the time they were living, who were fighting, just like a lot of you children in here now. You understand that freedom has never been free. Yeah. We've talked about these things with many of these children in here, and you understand that in order to be free, there is a sacrifice and a fight. Mm-hmm. But that's what we're looking at when we look at images like this. You're going to see some stevedores come through, people who are transporting, but that's what you're looking at. Change the context.
I think also context is really important because we have to be aware that we're looking through this through the technology of the time.
Right.
And so, if I'm going to hop on my little photography train here, the technology at the time with these photos, it took, 10 seconds, maybe a minute or two to take the photo. Yeah. So you think that these people were so stern and buttoned up. It's just because that's how it right. took to take the photo. And so you forget that these were people. They had dreams, they had jokes, they had things that meant a lot to them. And so you have to remember, there's a whole life behind the picture too.
Right, we didn't get photography until the 1830s, mm-hmm. right? That's when its inception. And these pictures were taken only 30 or 40 years later.
Right.
This is one, well, this isn't my favorite, but this is one that is really close to me. Because these troops, now this isn't the troop that invaded in the Rio Grande Expedition, but these are what the troops look like. And what I want people to understand is, before Lincoln allowed troops, African Americans were mustering troops together. Frederick Douglass, one of the most famous delegates for our cause of freedom, he had his own sons mustered before there was the Civil War. They were already training. They were ready. In fact, one of the first troops was in Louisiana. And you'll see them, they're wearing all gray. And a lot of people say, oh, those are the first blacks to fight in the Confederacy because you see them wearing all of this gray. No, they were not fighting in the Confederacy. They were fighting for liberation with the Union. Now, when it first started, well, I don't want to get into too many details, but these people were on a mission. They were on a mission. That's why I love to see these strong black men standing in unison together like this. But I also like to see the families. I like to see the children. Because we didn't fight it as men. We didn't fight it as women. We didn't fight it as children. We fought this battle for freedom as families. Families. Black families. And I think we've moved too far away from that. And it has divided our struggle in a way that weakens us. But we were families. And what you were saying is so true. One of the major points when we were separated was to find our people, to find our families. And that's not something we talk a lot about, but the major goal of every man, woman, and child was to find someone they had been separated from. And that's what we're looking at when we look at some of these images.
I know you were saying that you have a little bit of was it Caribbean on your dad's side? And then you have your mom who's from here. Is the story of Juneteenth maybe told differently in the Caribbean, or were there certain things that we maybe wouldn't think about?
Yeah, so in the Caribbean, things happen very differently. Here, you're kind of submerged into a white world, right? That is also the case in the Caribbean, but there's a lot of really fun stories that I love to read about, where, I mean, we were fighting for our freedom, winning, sending enslavers off on boats, and they were like terrified to stay here. We had people fleeing into the mountains, and they learned the land so well in the mountains that nobody could ever catch them, and if they ever got close, they had all these traps and things. I mean, they were brilliant people.
The Maroon Society.
Exactly, yeah, from Jamaica, right? So when you look at those stories, it's like, wow, these people had this such agency, like you were saying. I think it's also very important to talk about Black people in the form of they had agency. They were making things happen for themselves in a time where we didn't have much, you know, and we used what we had and we made things happen. So that's kind of the story in the Caribbean. It's a little bit different in the Virgin Islands than it is in Jamaica, than it is in other places, but you kind of see a really interesting story happening there. Unfortunately, you do see that kind of colonization happening, and you see how that cultural influence mixes. So you hear a lot of Caribbean people speaking French or mixtures of different things. So that's what it is, but yeah, it's different than it is here in the States, for sure.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. It's a completely different place. We keep talking about the importance of stories, and so I want to ask you a little bit about what you do as a traditional oral historian.
Yeah, even though I was born in Texas, I think I am a griot. Many of the people here now know what griots are. I am an oral historian. I was born in Texas, but when I was growing up, I spent a lot of time with my great-grandfather, and my great-grandfather lived to be 110. Y'all can clap for that. Anybody who lives to be 110, you better clap for that. My great-grandfather's mother and father were both born into enslavement. They were enslaved. So when I was growing up, I wasn't so far removed from this concept of enslavement as many of us think that we are. So I left this country when I was when I was a young adult, and I went to Africa, and I discovered, wow, see, I was born here, that's how there was this thing called Jalia, oral storytelling, oral historians. It was what Alex Haley went back when he discovered his roots. There was a historian who played this instrument and told him his history. And it was true history. And when I was in Africa, I fell in love with this, and I was adopted into families and taught, and this is what I've come back and I've been doing ever since for the past 34 years.
Can you tell us just a little bit about your instrument?
Oh, of course. I will tell you a little bit about it if you let me play it.
What do you think, guys?
Okay.
The crowd has spoken.
The instrument, hold on. Batio bati. Bati. Everyone goes quiet, because if you give me your eyes, I promise you music and stories. If I give you my eyes, you give me your ears. Batio bati. Bati. So the instrument is the oral historian's instrument out of West Africa. It's called a kora, and it's made of a gourd, cowskin, wood, and it has 21 strings, 10 on the left, 11 on the right. And it is an instrument, and you'll see the sound hole in the side, and they say this sound hole, it emits the history of the people when you play it. So it's not played just for entertainment, it's played to teach lessons of history. So when I consider myself somewhat of a bridge between my African ancestors, my Caribbean ancestors, my diaspora ancestors, and my ancestors here. I consider myself somewhat a bridge. So I use the instrument to teach history, songs. So I'll play a little for you, and I won't keep it too long. A little stronger, everyone, I want to feel it. Yeah, Jalia. Alaleka Jaliada. There was once a hunter. He had gone hunting, and he was hunting for birds, for quail. So he went out into a field and he searched the field. He scanned the field to see if there were any quail in the high grass. He saw the grass moving. So he took his giant net, slowly approached the grass that was moving, and he threw it over the grass, and when he threw it over the grass, the birds attempted to fly away, but they were trapped by the net. Bati. The birds were trapped by the net. He scooped up all of those birds, took them back to his home, opened up this giant cage, and threw all the birds inside. And when the birds were thrown into the cage, they made a loud noise. They brushed up against the cage, they squawked and squealed. And the hunter came back, and he threw bird seed into the cage. And when he did, the birds went quiet. They began eating the seed. Yeah, Jalia. All of the birds were eating the seed except for one. Whenever the birds would start making noise, the hunter would come back and throw more bird seed in. And each time he did, the birds would get quieter and quieter. But there was one bird who was refusing to eat. This bird stood at the edge of the cage away from all the others. And after weeks had passed, all the birds that were eating, they were getting big. They were getting fat. But that one bird who refused to eat was getting smaller and skinnier. And then after weeks and weeks, that one bird who would refuse to eat slipped through the cages, the bars of the cage, and was able to fly up to a nearby tree. All the other birds began yelling and squealing, "Don't leave us! Why are you leaving us?" And that bird who flew up into the tree spoke back and said, "Freedom has a price. If you are willing to be fed by your captors, then you are not willing to pay the price of freedom." Yeah, Charlie. Ambia sinana, ambia sinana, ambia sinana. Jadi musuhnya jadi kelu, ambia sinana. Jaya. That's a little bit of what griots do in West Africa. In the West, we consider it entertainment, but in the culture of our ancestors, it is a form of education. It's a form of passing on knowledge of transmission. And I, as a griot, this is what I travel the world doing.
Just learning from the two of you and from Erisa, music is such an important piece of not just the storytelling, but for this holiday as well, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, music has always been a part of our heritage. Music is one of the ways that we survived the enslavement of over 350 years. Music is a way that we survived 90 days in the Middle Passage, because even though our bodies were racked with pain, even though we were put in conditions that were so humane as to cause the death of a human being within minutes, those that survived brought their music with them, brought their song with them. Song was never for entertainment. Music has always been about survival, which is why when Erisa, the sister, was playing the saxophone, right? Some of us feel it at a molecular level. She almost brought me to tears because I felt what she was doing with that instrument.
I know Callum was telling me it felt like he was in church. It hit you that good.
It did. It hit me like I was in church. I think what was so beautiful about it is when you think about the history of our music, right? One of the biggest components of our music is improvisation. So we're always, and that's not even just music, that's with food, that's with we are cultural innovators. But when it comes to, right, that improvisation, you hear it across the board. She didn't just play da 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 da. She did, well, I can't do what you did, right? But she did all this other, runs, and there was all these things, but that's unique to only her, right? If somebody else came here and played that same song, it would not sound like that. It would be totally different. But that's what makes it so beautiful and rich, is that not only did she just play the melody, she hit us with a whole personal, right, style. And that is what's beautiful about Black music. When you hear Negro spirituals, when you hear all of these songs, gospel even today, right? There's always room for that improvisation and that innovation. We're running with it. We're creating new things. You will never hear the same song twice.
An analogy, I attended conservatory. As a musician, I went to conservatory. I played in Winston. I played different music. But when I was in conservatory, I was around some of the most incredible musicians you could have ever heard. And I remember when I was early, we went back to the dorms, and I was like, hey, let's go back to the dorms, right? So everyone took their instruments. We're all going back to the dorms. We get in the dorms, and I'm like, okay, let's do this. And I'm like, well, where's the music? I was like, no, we're just going to play. And they were all like, how are we going to play without any paper? How are we going to? So there's this distinction. There's something very African, I'll say Afrocentric, in the way that we still approach life. Even though we have been far removed from the continent, there are still aspects of us that are called Africanisms that can never be lost. They're just a part of our DNA.
Yes.
Something I want to point out for the people on our live stream who maybe didn't hear it because our entire audience is not mic'd up, but when you were telling your story, when you were singing, there's this inherent kind of call and response I've noticed, especially with, I learned from Denbury Bra at our African American festival here, they've told me there's no audience. Everybody participates, and so that was a really fun example. We didn't realize that you were coming with a whole backing crowd.
Yeah, I didn't, well, I work with a lot of schools, and this school here is called Vibrant Minds. They're a part of my family of schools. Like last week I was in Kenya. I adopted schools in Kenya. I travel all over the world adopting schools, but this is a home school for me. Not home school, this is a school from my hometown. But I have a lot of schools here, and we could have filled this place if we really wanted to, but these children are very special to me. And, I'm sorry, the teachers and parents also. I'm not going to forget y'all.
So, yes, everybody. My last kind of point or question that I wanted to make sure we touched on after talking about the history, after talking about, what this holiday means to both of you is, moving forward, how would you like to see this holiday acknowledged, and what do you hope to see for the Black community in the future, in the near future, tomorrow, 10 years from now? Sorry, not to hit you with the super easy question or anything.
For me, I want there to be an evolution of what we are calling a holiday. And if we're going to call this a national holiday, what I really want to do is I want to put it in the context of freedom. Because if you ask 10 people what freedom is, you're going to get 10 different explanations on freedom. But what I want is an acceptance for each individual's definition of freedom. So when we come together and we are celebrating or we are enjoying this time, I don't want us to be so stringent that we can't evolve to the point where we don't accept every individual's definition of freedom. Because to me, Juneteenth is more of a national holiday of freedom, an expression of freedom than July 4th is. Because my ancestors were enslaved during July 4th. But we still celebrate the principles of July 4th, right? As African Americans, we can celebrate the principles of it and still acknowledge the historical wrongs. So I want there to be, for me, an evolution of Juneteenth where it's recognized as a moment not of freed enslaved people, but when this nation finally lives up to the ideals and concepts that it expresses.
It sounds like you're talking a lot about just respect and respecting people to define their own freedom and letting them live that.
Yeah, well, because look, if many of the people who were celebrating the initial Juneteenth were here today, right? The way that they spoke, the way that they engaged, the way that they interacted, they would be judged harshly. And they are the founders, and they're the ancestors. So I just want that recognition that history is not something in the past, it's a part of our present.
I completely agree. I think if there's something that I would want for Juneteenth in the future, one, I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. Since I was in first grade, a little younger than most of you, I wanted to do marine biology from that age, and I knew it. I did presentations in my first grade class about it, but I was the only one. I was the only one who actually liked this kind of stuff in my community, and we're at my church. You know, I would bring tarantulas in to teach people with, and everyone was going like this, you know, but that was my life growing up. I went to a HBCU. I went to the Virgin Islands for school to study marine biology. So I went to a HBCU, and I had no black teachers that looked like me in marine science. Not once did I have a black teacher. And that was hard for me, you know. Things like that. I want to see professions like this, different professions around the world, right, that are super important to black life, right? Science, it's important to us, right? Our well-being, our health, that's critical, right? But if there's no one in those places that look like us, who are here to back us up, who are here to talk to us in a way that we can relate with, right? Call and response. We have these, right, we're laughing, we're joking around certain things, but we're gonna get back to the point, right? If we don't have those people in those spaces, it's just that much harder for us to navigate everyday life. So what I want for Juneteenth, instead of us saying, congratulations, that happened, how amazing job, right? I want us to actually do something in our jobs, in our institutions where we are saying, no, we need to open this gap. Make some room, make way, and you come in, and don't just come in and be respectable and palatable to us. No, come in and be yourself. Bring your African, ancestry. Bring that in here, so that way when people come in, they feel like a part. They feel like they're wanted here. They're seen. Another thing that I really wanted to say is that we are cultural innovators. So that's the beautiful thing about African American and just Black culture in general. We are constantly creating. I think a big part of that is because every time we create something, it's stolen quickly, so we have to create something new, and then it's this everlasting. But we are cultural innovators. We are always creating new things, and like you said, our history is not just in the past, and our culture is not just in the past. You all, my black youth here, you all are a part of that. You are going to be changing things and making songs and making new communal dances. It was the whip, it was the nay-nay, now it's the, all kind of stuff is coming out. It's gonna be you, and so what I can't wait to see is what you all are gonna come up with, and we're just gonna have to sit back and give it to you and let you run it. I'm gonna be sitting there as the old uncle at the cookout, and I'm just gonna say, you go on ahead and dance, baby. You go on ahead and do that thing, because that's what it's about. So the culture is yours. Take it, innovate it, make it into something new. We're talking about Afrofuturism now, we're seeing Amapiano, a South African dance taking us by storm, right? We are cultural innovators. So that's something that I want to see is you guys band together, make that culture, take it, right? Take ownership of it, enjoy it, it's yours. And be beautiful, be yourself. Yeah.
That was said really nicely. You were talking earlier about when you were a child, you kind of thought of Juneteenth as this time where you got to eat really good food. And so one of the things you were mentioning is that it's kind of a detriment to ourselves if we're only getting one viewpoint all the time. And it's better for all of us, for our health, for science, for discoveries, for all of it, culture, if we're hearing different opinions all of the time. And so I'll put myself on blast a little bit here. One of my favorite ways to experience a new culture is through hearing music or eating food, because everybody loves food, and you can always find something that is delicious and will lead you into learning more about what you're experiencing. And that's just my favorite part.
Absolutely love the food. Love the food, yes.
Was there anything that we haven't really discussed that you think is worth mentioning? We are coming up close on our time, but we have a little more left.
I'm not even going to open that door because honestly, we need an entire week. What I learned when I was doing my griot training in West Africa is there was a suspension of time and days and weeks. But we live in a very time-conscious society. So I'm not going to open that door, but yes, there is an abundance of learning that we all have to immerse ourselves in order for us to get where it is we envision we need to be. The ideals that this nation professes are what I hold on to more than the people who profess them.
Yeah.
I learned, I had an elder named Kwame Ture who told me, he said, don't judge any religion, spiritual practice, or political practice by its adherents. Judge it by its principles. So I live based on judging by principles, not the people.
Yeah.
So that's what I'll put.
I would just agree with that. I think what I would say is I will never forget, right, going to the beach in my school. I used to, live right on the beach, so I would be in the Virgin Islands, beautiful sunset, and there was all to be there, sometimes they're washing their hair in the ocean or whatever the case is. And I would just go up to some of the Rastafarians and we would just sit back and talk. And literally, we'd just be standing in the water, talking all day long, watching the sun just go down below the water line. And what those men knew blew my mind. And they were very historically accurate. It lined up with a lot of the things that I study. And those people knew their stuff. So I just say that to say, sit down with the people who look like you. Don't, embrace the people around you. The culture is here. There's an abundance of knowledge. There's a wealth of information, and it is sometimes literally sitting right next to us, right? Look at how you all were singing along in our tongue with him. I mean, what a wealth of knowledge and information that's sitting right here. That's all around us, and we have to tap into that. Sit down, take the time, right? Get off TikTok for a second. That's okay. I got it too. But, get off and sit down with the people next to you and just exchange, and take as much as you can from it, right? And also be yourself. Love what you got up here, love what you got everywhere else, okay? We live in a world that is kind of telling us not to. So it's so important for us to also not only learn about ourselves, but practice loving ourselves authentically. Practice taking care of your skin, right? Get that shea butter. Practice that, okay? Put that on. Take care of yourself. You are worthy of being here. You are amazing. Take care of yourself. Be you so that way you can innovate the culture for the future.
So talk to your neighbor.
Talk to your neighbor, somebody, okay? And
Well, I want to thank you both so much for coming today and teaching me and teaching everybody and sharing this all with us. And if we can give them a very warm round of applause, and thank you both for being here. So last but definitely not least, I'd like to introduce to you, we have longtime friend of the Aquarium, Melvin Boyce II, who will be doing some spoken word for us. Let's give it up. Right there is all for you.
How's everybody doing today? Wait a minute. Now, I just stepped out in the hallway and I saw a turtle. You saw a turtle too? And then I looked to my left and I saw 2 more turtles. And they started to travel because it was almost lunchtime. And they made it all the way to where turtles love to eat. Because turtles love nachos, right? Who knew that already? Thank you. Exactly. You made my point. Exactly. But then, one of the turtles got a stomach ache. And Terry the turtle looked and said, why are you so upset? We got a whole plate of nachos. Everybody here got nachos. And, of course, our favorite, hibiscus tea. But she said, my stomach hurts because everybody I love and care about didn't get to come eat today. A matter of fact, guess what, everybody? They did not even know that they could eat there. Everybody's tummy started to hurt. The person serving the nachos, their tummy started to hurt. The person that was almost finished with their whole plate of nachos, their tummy started to hurt. One young girl had just finished the reddest hibiscus tea, and she couldn't finish the tea because her stomach, it started to hurt. Because if everyone doesn't get a chance to eat, it doesn't feel good when I eat. Raise your hand if you play on recess or you play on the playground. But were you like me? Sometimes you had to go sit on the side because you didn't do what the teacher said? Yeah. We finished the game, but the game wasn't that fun because everybody didn't get to play. How can we play one-on-one if everybody doesn't get to feel the sun? How can we catch lightning bugs in early June anytime we want to if everybody can't go look at the moon? My belly hurts when you can't go outside to recess. My belly hurts when you sit in class and you wore your favorite shoes that made you feel so free, and somebody laughed at your shoes. Has anybody ever done that to you? That's good. But guess what? Those shoes are not about fashion. Those shoes are about your function. Those shoes are going to allow you to walk into your greatness. Those shoes are going to allow you to glide into who you are. Those shoes are going to allow you to sit and know that if you don't get to eat those nachos and I can't eat those nachos, then everybody's tummy is going to hurt unless we all can celebrate our worth. Thank you so much. All right. My voice out there. Can you hear me up top? This mic isn't fun right now, and I want to have fun. Is it okay for you all? Can you hear me good? I've had this voice since I was 14. So don't make fun of kids when their voice is deep, right? Everybody say, Pamoja. Everybody over here say, Sankofa. Everybody say, Pamoja. The parasympathetic nervous system. Everybody over here say, Sankofa. Sankofa. The sympathetic nervous system. Now, Pamoja, she was the big sister. She loved her brother Sankofa. But Sankofa would not stop fighting. And Sankofa would not stop running. Now, sometimes you gotta run if there's a whole bunch of bees chasing after you, right? Would you run if a whole bunch of bees were chasing you? Yes. If a whole bunch of bees were chasing you, would you want to be like Pamoja or Sankofa? Sankofa. Now, when I leave here, I'm going to get me a slice of pizza. And I'm going to take my time, and I'm going to eat it as fast. No, I'm going to eat it as slow as I can. Do you want to be like Sankofa when you eat that pizza, or Pamoja when you eat that pizza? Do you want to be like Sankofa? Pamoja, because you want to digest and rest. Everybody say Pamoja. Digest and rest. Everybody say Sankofa. Fight or flight. I don't like to fight. These hands right here are so good at writing poetry that sometimes I stay up late at night and I draw pictures of myself so free. But one day I had to go and enter a spelling bee, and I got last replaced because I couldn't spell free correctly. Does anybody know how to spell free? Let's say it all together. What's the first letter? What's the second letter? That's why I lost the spelling bee, because she said spell free. And all I heard her say was, who's free? And I spelled it I-A-M. I spelled it I-A-M. And they said, Melvin, we'll give you one more chance to spell it right. We'll even let the audience help you. Can we try it one more time? How do you spell free? But I heard her incorrectly. I thought she asked me what I was. So I spelled it I-A-M. And everybody laughed at me because, see, my first day of third grade, they called me chocolate chip face. And I said, why would you do that? They said, because somebody like you shouldn't have all those chocolate chips on your face. I said, what do you mean? My grandpa's Choctaw Indian. One of my grandmas from Dublin, Ireland. I think I'm supposed to have every chocolate chip on my face. And then one guy came up to me. He said, he wasn't a guy, he was my age. He said, no, you're supposed to have strawberry ones like I do. I said, wait a minute. Why do I have to have strawberries all over my face? Freckles can be chocolate chip. Freckles can be strawberry. Freckles can be caramel. Freckles can be white almond. Did I forget a dessert that freckles could be? Ice cream. I look the way I look because I'm supposed to look this way. Everybody say, I look the way I look because I'm supposed to look this way. The way you look is so beautiful. Oh, you can repeat that. Wait a minute. Can you come down here, please? We have to celebrate that because it took me a while to find my voice in a room full of people. And we did a call and response that, you know, I'm a student of Baba too. That's what's so weird at being up here right now. Thank you, Baba. And you had the power. Come here, come here. You had the power and courage when everyone was quiet. And what did you say? It's incredible, huh? All these people right here are celebrating you right now. There's no wrong, there's no right. It's only what's on your heart. Look at round. Look at all those eyes following your greatness. What do you want to tell them right now about yourself?
That I'm great.
Yes, right? Now, I just got my AARP card. If you don't know what that is, oh my goodness, it gets you 10% off your ticket to Hawaii. Who's laughing at that? But by the time you start changing laws, please don't forget about me. Give it up one more time. We didn't even get your name. What was your name? I apologize. That's right. Command them. Tell them who you are.
My name is Camila Alexandra Chavez.
Tell them who you are.
I am Camila Alexandra Chavez.
Now, my name is Yogi Melvin, I just completed my 30th year as an educator with LAUSD, partnering with them, bringing in wellness, bringing in breath work. We all bring it in under the guise of yoga. But it's really about that right there. It's really about that young lady having that moment on this stage. And now no one can tell her anything different. She already knew she was great. You all didn't do that. All you did was validate. And that's why when I heard that scream that you all gave Baba and Chelsea was like your fans. Yeah, Chelsea is family. But no, you were right. It's fans. Because Baba makes you a fan of yourself. And that's why when he steps on campus, they scream and they run, and other teachers sometimes get jealous. I'm sorry, I'm telling my story. But I have to celebrate our youth. That's where the true freedom lies. Like Baba stated. And brother, what was your name again? I apologize. Say it again. Caleb. I remember that smile and that energy, brother. Thank you. I never liked this holiday when it first started because when I grew up, I was taught finish first. Who was the first judge? Who was the first this? But this holiday celebrates the last that found out. But I finally got it one day, and this whole room validated it. Until we're all free, nobody's free. And I don't even mean the physical body. I mean the one kid that can't get off and play on the playground with the other kids. It makes recess a little different. So give it up for all our kids here today, everybody. Now, I think I got a couple minutes left, right, Chelsea? Yes. So my mother was a theater director, and I used to grow up and watch my mother teach theater. I never had a babysitter. It was always the actors in the play. But I used to get to see greatness on the stage. I used to get to hear greatness. I got to always do what your daughter, sir, has the ability to do. I know she sees it when she watches you, but could you come up here, please? No, your daughter, not you, sir. No, we celebrate her. No, come on up, man. It's Father's Day, man. Come on up, man. You know I'm playing with you. You're like, what? Yes. Give it up for this father and daughter right here, everybody. Let me tell you why this is so amazing, because you get to watch your mommy play that sax. And it probably takes her around the whole world like Baba if it doesn't already. And you know that it's all about education. And you know that it's all about your art, right? So the next song she's about to do that we're going to end this beautiful day that we started off with is called
A Change is Gonna Come.
A Change is Gonna Come, everybody. but we're going to get what's ours. Because I know it's a young child sitting all the way at the top that's got an idea that's going to save my life one day. And right now, nobody may listen. You don't want to be the first. You want to be the one that has the purpose, position. Man, thank y'all so much. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you, Baba. Thank you for allowing me. Chelsea. Let's get up for the camera women and the camera men, everybody. Give it up for the sound engineer. Thank y'all so much. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. That does conclude our programming for the day, but from the bottom of my heart, from the Aquarium, thank you all for being here, and thank you to my little family here off to the side. I'm so grateful you all were able to come today. Thanks, everyone.